Newsmax TV there to cover the event. Afterwards, I had the opportunity to spend a few minutes with Dr. Carson one-on-one. Dr. Carson, you're the author of the book entitled One Nation. Yet when you hear that President Obama and the Democrats want to base their campaign for the midterms on racial division, on the politics of Ferguson, Missouri, what's your reaction?
My reaction is that I hope that the American people are getting smarter by the day and realize that there are a number of people who like to manipulate them and fan the flames of division. And they start thinking for themselves. What we need to understand is, yes, Ferguson was a tragedy, and there are many tragedies like that that occur every day. But it has less to do with racism and a lot more to do with some deep cultural issues that are producing individuals who are likely to end up in trouble with the law, who are likely to end up in conflict with each other, which will lead to violence and death. And we need to be addressing those kinds of issues, not obeying the dictates of those who fan the flames of division for their own political reasons.
Does it surprise you that President Obama has formed an alliance with Al Sharpton?
No, that didn't surprise me at all, because President Obama, the community organizers, that's what they do. You know, it's always us against them. And, I always anticipated that that's the way things were going to be. Why would he change now?
Dr. Carson, it's been said that one person's community organizer is another person's street agitator. Is that a fair description?
In the kind of community organizer that he is, which is in the mold of Saul Alinsky, absolutely. It's about creating dissatisfaction and then using that as a tool and as a wedge to accomplish your larger goals.
Dr. Carson, it's one thing to talk about a campaign, but now to see Attorney General Holder use the full assets of the Justice Department for what he claims to be an inquiry into Ferguson. Is he using that official government agency for political purposes?
Well, I would say people should read a book called The Naked Communist. It was written in 1958, and it sort of shows the whole timeline of what would be necessary in terms of, gaining control of school systems, of unions, and eventually being able to get a foothold in government, the executive branch included, which includes the DOJ, and what could be done under those circumstances. It was written in 1958. If you read it, you would think it was written last year.
Dr. Carson, some people are going to hear your words and they're going to say, wait a minute, Dr. Carson is calling President Obama and Attorney General Holder communists. Are you doing that?
My answer would be the same. Read the book. I just gave it to you. Read that book, The Naked Communist by Cleon Skousen, and read, Mein Kampf, and read the works of Vladimir Lenin. Read them yourself. I tell people, don't listen to what I'm saying. Read it yourself. I think it'll make a much bigger impression on you.
But Dr. Carson, certainly you understand that a lot of people don't have time to read the books you outline. They look to you for your assessment and your leadership. So with that in mind, turning to history, will President Obama chiefly be known as the first African-American president, since so many of his agenda policies have tried to change America so radically and apparently have failed?
Well, I'm not sure how he'll be remembered. I always believe that the truth comes out as time goes on. And what his true motives are, I think will eventually come out, and that will dictate how he will be remembered.
Dr. Carson, when it comes to international matters, specifically ISIS and the ongoing persecution and really extermination, genocide of Christians and other groups, has President Obama spoken out enough to try and stem the genocide against Christians?
Well, I believe that people have a tendency to focus their energies on what's important to them. And that apparently is not something that is high on his priority list. and it's not something that's high on many people's priority list, even here in this country. You know, when we look at their First Amendment, freedom of religion, obviously our framers thought that it was extremely important. We've allowed it to be distorted now to become freedom from religion. And you have an atheist group who I am perfectly happy for them to exist and to do what they want to do. I'm not perfectly happy for them to try to thrust their religion on everybody else, their religion being atheism.
Dr. Carson, Ed Rollins is a noted Republican political consultant. He had a lot of good things to say about you, but after he got finished with those words of praise, he said he wasn't sure that you were ready to run for the presidency. Your reaction to the assessment of consultants like Ed Rollins?
Well, I would expect traditional politicians to say that, because I'm not a traditional politician. Never plan to become a traditional politician. And so if I enter the public arena, it would be as a citizen spokesman, someone who is truly a representative of the people and not of the political class. And I wouldn't expect the political class to understand that.
Citizen, spokesman, candidate. Is it conceivable you will add that definition to what's ahead?
We're certainly looking at the possibilities, laying the groundwork in case that decision is made. But, you know, I really will be very interested in the people themselves. What do they want? Do they want a continuation of traditional politics? And if they do, I'm happy with that.
Dr. Carson, whether you choose to run or not, in the realm of traditional politics, the buzz is that former Florida Governor Jeb Bush is about to mount a campaign for the presidency. Your assessment of Governor Bush?
I think he was a good governor, and I say the more the merrier. We need a lot of people to run so that the people will have a real choice, and we want to hear what their thoughts are and what their solutions are, and hopefully that process will yield the best candidate.
Dr. Carson, you're saying you're a citizen spokesman. Will you end up adding the word candidate to that description?
Well, you know, I and my wife feel that it is incredibly important that we get the message out there, and we get it out to everybody in this nation. Now, we know that that won't occur with the mainstream media. You know, for instance, you know, our book, One Nation, is #1 in the New York Times bestseller list. Do you hear a word about it from the mainstream media? Of course not. They wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And yet, you know, it's spreading by word of mouth. People are understanding that by the same token as we go around from city to city all over the nation, and we tell people, I don't want you just to be inspired. I want you to talk to your neighbor and to your uncle who hasn't voted for 20 years and your invalid aunt. And, you know, 93 million people didn't vote in the last presidential election. 30 million evangelicals didn't vote. We need to get those people reactivated again, because that's the only way that we end up with a country that is truly representative of how the people feel.
Dr. Carson, you've kept up a frantic pace, akin to a national campaign, signing books, making speeches from coast to coast. Is there one moment in this entire endeavor that really has spoken to your heart?
There's just so many, but I remember one elderly lady in South Carolina as I was walking away, and she was just clinging to my hand, and she says, please, you gotta promise me you're gonna run. And, you know, she was crying, and, you know, I've encountered a lot of people like that who are just so concerned about what's happening to our nation.
Dr. Carson, I guess we'll just leave it there. Thanks very much for your time. Ben Carson, will he just leave it there, consider running for the presidency, or do you believe he will run for president in 2016, and should Dr. Ben Carson run for the nation's highest office? Your insight, your reaction to the interview, and what you think the future plans of the good doctor may be, a couple of topics that you might want to address. Why don't you tweet me your comments on this interview and on the entire subject? You can reach me at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. There's also newsmaxtv.com/comment. And don't forget Facebook. You can reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/Newsmax. When we come back, participants from the left and right on what's right and what's wrong.